massive strike. Israel attacked Iran. How will the Islamic Republic respond? The third group. A plane carrying Russian soldiers released from Ukrainian captivity has landed in the Moscow region. Moscow Seasons. The Russian Culture Festival has started in Beijing. The top stories at this hour. In the studio, Ilya Fedorovtsev. Hello. At least 78 people have been killed and more than 300 injured in Israeli attacks on residential areas of Tehran. According to news agencies, at this very moment Israel is launching new strikes in the northwest of the Islamic Republic. It is known that several high-ranking Iranian generals have been killed. The Russian Foreign Ministry has strongly condemned the Israeli strikes, pointing out that they violate international law. Against this backdrop, Donald Trump stated that he supports Israel's actions and considers the attack a success. Nikita Korzun reports on how the events unfolded.
Explosions are shaking Shiraz. An Israeli strike targeted a missile manufacturing plant. At the same time, military nuclear facilities in northern Iran were attacked. Explosions had been reported at the military airport in Tabriz. This is the administrative center of East Azerbaijan province. As of now, 5 people are known to have died and 12 have been injured in Tabriz. Israel relentlessly attacks its main target as well, the uranium enrichment plant in Natanz. What was called preemptive pinpoint strikes under the cover of night looks completely different in the daylight.
This is a critically important operation to prevent an existential threat from an enemy that intends to destroy us. We launched this operation because the time had come. We are at the point of no return.
These images released by Tel Aviv are also meant to amplify the drama of what's happening. Israeli Air Force jets are leaving their hangars to embark on an operation with the Old Testament name Rising Lion. Here is a map of Israeli targets on Iranian territory. Strikes have been carried out on 100 targets, including military bases, uranium mines, research centers, and specifically the uranium enrichment plant in Natanz, which has received the highest number of strikes so far. And judging by the fact that the strikes are ongoing, Israel has not yet achieved its objectives there, although the country's leadership is already drawing some conclusions.
So, we delivered a very successful first strike. We struck the top command, as well as leading scientists involved in developing the atomic bomb. We hit nuclear facilities.
At the same time as the strikes on special facilities, Israel blew up the homes of high-ranking Iranian military officials. If we are to believe Tel Aviv's statements, the following have been eliminated: the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, Hossein Salami, the chief of the general staff, Mohammad Bagheri, and the commanders of special units. And this, for example, is what the house looks like where Professor of Nuclear Physics at Iran's National University, Beheshti Shahid Zolfikar, lived. Continuing its long-standing and consistent practice of eliminating Iranian nuclear physicists, at dawn today, Israel killed at least 6 more scientists.
We spent a long time preparing this operation. Unprecedented efforts were made in all units and departments to achieve readiness to confront a real and tangible threat.
The Israeli press reports that the operation had been planned for several years. Mossad deployed strike systems near Iranian anti-aircraft missile complexes and established a drone base, quote, in the very heart of Iran. On the night of June 13th, the Israeli military activated them to attack surface-to-surface missile launchers located at a facility near Tehran. Naturally, agents of Israeli intelligence services are actively operating within the country, identifying targets and coordinating strikes.
Air Force pilots are heroically operating thousands of kilometers away from Israeli territory, carrying out strikes in places where Israeli aircraft have never flown before. Last night, 200 fighter jets launched and dropped more than 300 munitions.
In Tehran, as well as on the streets of other cities in the Islamic Republic, people are taking to the streets in protest, trying to draw the attention of the international community to this unprecedented violation of international law. A red flag has been raised over the Jamkaran Mosque, a shrine for Shia Muslims who make up the majority in Iran, signifying a day of mourning. President Pezeshkian is threatening the Zionists, as he put it, with God's wrath. Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei has so far limited himself to a statement that Iranian TV channels are repeating every hour.
To the great nation of Iran, this morning at dawn, the Zionist regime extended its vile and blood-stained hand into our beloved country, revealing its malicious nature and striking residential areas. The regime must face severe punishment. In the name of Almighty God, the powerful hand of the armed forces of the Islamic Republic will not let this go unpunished.
So far, the international reaction has mostly been speculation about whether Washington knew about Tel Aviv's plans to resolve the Iranian issue once and for all. The Israelis claim that everyone in the Oval Office was fully aware. The American administration has limited itself to just shrugging and dropping hints.
Listen, they didn't tell me anything, but as I said, there's a real chance of a serious conflict.
That's what Trump said the day before, explaining the order to evaluate personnel from American bases in Iraq, Bahrain, and Kuwait. Today, now that the reasons have become more than obvious, the American leader wrote, 2 months ago, I gave Iran a 60-day ultimatum to make a deal. Let me remind you, this deal involves Tehran giving up uranium enrichment in exchange for lifting sanctions. They were supposed to do it, Trump continues, and reminds, today is the 61st day. Now they might have a second chance. In other words, the lion that has risen in Israel is a way to make Iran more compliant. Although the big question is whether it will be possible to drive it back into its den or wherever lions live. Russia, for its part, strongly condemns Israel's use of force. The Russian Foreign Ministry considers unprovoked military strikes against a sovereign state, a UN member, its citizens, sleeping peaceful cities, and nuclear energy infrastructure facilities to be absolutely unacceptable. The international community cannot afford to be indifferent to such atrocities, which destroy peace and undermine regional and international security. What makes what is happening especially cynical is the fact that the Israeli attacks were carried out in the midst of the IAEA Board of Governors session and on the eve of another round of indirect talks between representatives of Iran and the United States. However, less than an hour ago, Tehran officially withdrew from nuclear negotiations with Washington. In addition, following the uprising of the lion, Iran launched hundreds of drones. According to Tel Aviv, all of them were intercepted before they even entered Israeli airspace. Nikita Korzun, Maxim Zaichenko, and Polina Timofeeva, NTV.
An IL-76 carrying the third group of Russian servicemen who have been held captive in Ukraine has landed in the Moscow region. Now our soldiers will undergo treatment and rehabilitation in medical facilities. But for now, there is only the joy of coming home.
Wife, Mom, I've arrived in Moscow. I'm doing fine.
Russia, happy holiday.
We're happy to finally be home.
Russia, victory will be ours.
Hooray. Let's go.
Russia.
In return, a group of Ukrainian prisoners of war was handed over to Kiev. The exchange took place in accordance with the agreements reached during negotiations in Istanbul on June 2nd. At the same time, as it turned out, the Ukrainian side is not ready to cooperate in fulfilling the agreements and is actually disrupting the exchange schedule that was agreed upon in Turkey. In Dagestan. They are dealing with the aftermath of a powerful hurricane. It hit the region last night. Strong winds with gusts up to 30 meters per second tore roofs off houses and knocked down trees. Several thousand people were left without electricity. Power lines were damaged. In Caspiask, a stage near the Anji Arena collapsed. The storm hit the regional capital, Makhachkala, as well as 7 municipal districts. Utility workers have been put on high alert. A tree fell on Beijing these days is speaking Russian. The Moscow seasons have kicked off in the capital of China. This is a large-scale festival as part of the cross-year of culture between Russia and China. The Chinese can sample Russian cuisine and even go on a virtual tour of Moscow. They can also drink tea from a samovar or by the world-famous Matryoshka dolls. Ksenia Nekrasova found out that everything Russian genuinely delights the Chinese.
The main pedestrian street of the Chinese capital, Wangfuji, which is often called the Beijing Arba, has also started to sound Russian these days. The melodies of songs that are probably familiar to everyone in China. Moscow Nights, Kalinka, Katyusha, people sing along as if they know every note. It's just as heartfelt as Russian culture itself. These are the Chinese about the balalaika, whose sound instantly evokes delight in the public.
Bye. When you delete it today, bye. I really love Russia, Russian culture. I really love Moscow. It's such a beautiful city. And your metro, it's truly a work of art.
Moscow Seasons introduces the people of Beijing to Russia's capital through such recognizable folk symbols as matryoshka dolls, Pavlovo posad shawls, a samovar with baranki, and the traditions of Russian tea drinking. For the Chinese, with their special attitude toward tea ceremonies, it's unusual, but that's exactly what makes it so appealing. Tourists from China remain the leaders in the number of trips to Russia. Just last year, 500,000 travelers from China visited Moscow.
Favorite place? Of course, Red Square.
Yes.
The Kremlin.
Right here at the festival, you can plan your route on the spot. At the information center, anyone interested can learn about the city's attractions and exhibitions. You can even take a virtual walk through Moscow thanks to augmented reality technology, so you can see VDNH, the Kremlin, and the Museum of Cosmonautics with your own eyes, and then, in the next pavilion, get a real taste of Russia.
This is my favorite Russian dish. Pancake, right? Yeah, with all kinds of fillings.
But the main hit is Russian ice cream. It gets snapped up instantly. And it's not just because of the heat that came to Beijing with the start of summer. The temperature is almost 40 degrees, but because of the taste of creamy Plomber ice cream, which instantly won over 1 billion people and became so beloved by the Chinese, even by the head of China himself, who once admitted that he brings ice cream home from almost every trip to Russia. However, Moscow still has plenty to surprise China with. There are opportunities for cooperation in every field.
The cultural program, which includes more than 150 artists who came with us from Moscow, will be showcased to the residents of Beijing and tourists from all over China. And in addition, the business program will allow us to present not only Moscow's tourism potential, but also its economic potential in the best possible way.
The business ties between Moscow and Beijing have a long history. For 30 years now, the two capitals have been sister cities. In Moscow, the Chinese New Year is celebrated on a grand scale, and in Beijing, Maslenitsa is celebrated. There are joint projects in trade, tourism, transportation, and technology. Russian and Chinese specialists are working together to develop the smart city concept. All of this will be discussed during the business part of the festival, where Moscow companies will present their innovations and investors from China will showcase their interests. And it's symbolic that the Moscow Seasons, which will last almost a week, began on Russia Day, a day that this time became a vibrant celebration for Beijing as well. Ksenia Nekrasova, Alexander Gyuzov, reporting especially for NTV.
The sports drama, More Than Football, is winning the hearts of viewers all across the country. At the heart of the story is the unexpected invitation for the Russian national team to the Euro Cup. The coach faces the challenge of building a team out of players who, for now, don't even want to play together. They are about to face the toughest battle of their lives, and their main rivals turn out not to be on the field at all. Authentic, honest, emotional, sometimes even moving viewers to tears. That's how people are describing the film.
Our kids play football too. We're always worried about them. And now we experience those same emotions, only this time through the movie.
The concept of the film was really cool. I really liked it. The beginning, the end, and the middle. How the stories of all the characters unfolded. It made me want to go play some soccer out on the field.
A wonderful family movie, uplifting and kind-hearted. Both of my kids play soccer, so we were really happy to go, and I hope it motivated them to keep striving for victory and to keep playing soccer.
And for those who haven't seen the film yet, now's a great time to head to the theater. Now, let's return to the first topic of this episode, the Israeli strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. The Islamic Republic has stated it will respond to Israel's actions firmly and proportionally. This was stated in a letter from Iran's foreign minister to the UN Security Council. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu plans to discuss the situation with Vladimir Putin. This was reported by his office. It is noted that the conversation is expected to take place in the near future. Meanwhile, Israel's attacks continue. In just the past hour, the country's armed forces have twice attacked military targets in western Iran. Israel claims to have destroyed dozens of launchers and missile storage facilities. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khomeini, in his message to the country's citizens, called the strikes a crime and said that Israel faces a bitter and terrifying fate. The Russian Foreign Ministry has called on all sides to exercise restraint in order to prevent a full-scale war from breaking out in the region. That's all we have for now. Visit our website at ntv.ru. See you next time.